So if living the old story has gotten us into this crisis, what are some of the key elements of a new story we now want to live that will get us out of this crisis and to a higher level of human consciousness? Because as far as I'm concerned, values and drive behaviors and actions. And so if I have been living the story of economic growth at all costs based on fossil fuels, and that story is now going to kill us, what's the new story? And I have a hooker in that question, because I see this, because I'm a very positive person, I see this crisis as an opportunity, if we take the opportunity, to actually push us to a higher level of evolution. So in terms of the way I think about the new story, I think of it, one, on the values piece that Shirley just mentioned, and the other is the systems change. This change in our values and our consciousness, and the change in the system that we have created that is creating the problem, and how we go about that. So that's the way I'm holding this. In terms of the new story on the values side, I think we need to have a vision of what is possible. That's why I asked that question the way I did, of what is possible if we all start to work together, and how we can create something that is even more satisfying in terms of human beings. People talked about community and things like that, which obviously I'm referring to. I think it is important that that vision or that story acknowledge that global warming and climate change are really a clear and present danger, that's what we're referring to. That's the anchor. That it's based on hope and not fear. It's a positive, not a negative. That it offers future generations the possibility of healthy and meaningful lives. Another piece is the importance of balance and harmony. What I sense is that there are really three things that indigenous people can teach us that we have forgotten in our headlong rush to modernity. One is that they hold the natural world as sacred. It's not property. It's something that they want to steward so that in turn they can benefit from that stewardship in terms of survival and agricultural and all the rest. So we need to shift the relationship between ourselves and the natural world so we get in harmony, in balance with the natural world. That's very fundamental. The second is that we have moved so far away from being in relationship to each other in community. But the world as a whole is focused, and of course some of the comments were made about individualism, and we've gone so far that way that we have lost the sense and the satisfaction of working together. It's being in balance or harmony with the natural world, each other in community. And the third is we seem to have lost our sense of our relationship with ourselves. Sounds like a funny thing to say. There's so much out there that's now coming at us that is trying to define what we should have to be happy and have meaningful lives, that we're not looking inside and saying, who's inside and wants to come out? When Carol and I had the opportunity of creating two conferences in Bali called Quest for Global Healing, was anybody at any of either of those? There were 1,000 people from 40 countries and Desmond Tutu and all sorts of things at those conferences. And we were really going deep. But the most valuable thing of those times in Bali was the phrase that the Balinese had that wasn't mentioned at the conference, which is Tri Hitakarana. And what it means, as pretend I'm Balinese, that I will live each day in harmony with the natural world, with others in my community, and with myself, or spirit, as they call it. In terms of the shift in the system, how are we going to move away from the deeply embedded parts of our system that no longer serve us? And what I'm referring to is we have to get off this addiction. We have to do it in a matter of years, not decades even. Incrementalism doesn't work as it might have in the 70s and the 80s, et cetera, as I said. And we need to create an economic system that, one, is fueled by renewables. That's totally possible. Obviously, there are some industries like that is challenging to do that, but it's possible. Distinguish between economic growth that harms people and planet and growth that supports people and planet. I mentioned that before. That redefines prosperity. That we no longer think of prosperity just in terms of the money in our pocket, but in terms of our relationships and all the rest. And how do we do that? That maintains an economic system that maintains high employment and social stability. Now, that's a real challenge to do all of that. If you're an economist, you say, ooh, but we can't change all of that, and we have to have economic growth at all costs, because that is going to provide us with the tax money to pay down our debt. And if we don't pay down our debt, national debt, then the whole system comes up, down, it breaks down. So there are all sorts of subtleties of how we make this transition to an economic system that is just the way we want it for this new, off of fossil fuels, and still serves the planet and people. So I'm suggesting we get on with it. We can do it. The future is indeed in your hands, my hands. Thank you very much.